Welcome to this podcast where today we'll be introducing David Romeral, who is joining me. And our aim here is to try to share with you some experiences for the newbies and some experiences also for the, let's say, for the veterans. After all, what we are going to pretend here is to have a dialogue. This is the first episode, so it's an experiment. And I thank you very much, David, for joining me in this enterprise and trying to share some of the knowledge, some of the experiences we had in the last few years as cluster managers of our own clusters. And hopefully you will find something interesting for your cluster, and hopefully you will be also open to share your experience, maybe through the chat that we can have after this video, or maybe you will be also available for an interview maybe in the future. The aim altogether is to be able to share some of the experiences we had and try to improve through experiences, try to improve to copying what's working somewhere, in this case in Spain, or maybe what's working in Germany, in France, some other places. There are going to be some similarities, there are going to be some differences, but after all, we hope we can share and grow together through this. So thank you very much, David, for joining us in this very first episode of this podcast. I don't know where it's going to go. We're going to spend the next, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes, maybe 1 hour. We'll see how long does it take us to share experiences. And just to let you know, David is about 15 years of being the cluster manager of the cluster of the automotive industry in Aragon, which is one of the main states here in Spain regarding automotive industry. So thank you very much, David, for being here with us today.
Thank you, Josep. It's a pleasure. Very happy to be with you. Very honored that you picked me up for this first podcast. But this is about collaboration. This is what clusters do. So happy to collaborate with you in this in this podcast that I'm sure is going to be a success.
Let's see. Let me ask you first of all. It's very important, I think, for the audience that David and myself, we already know. That's why we start together with this podcast. So some of the questions we're gonna throw each other, at least at the very beginning. We already know part of the answer, at least, maybe not as deep as maybe it's gonna show up later. But we have some history together. But just to put in context, David, where do you used to work before and going to as a cluster manager, and why did you accept the challenge? Because to work on a cluster is a quite particular organization, quite particular, and at the very beginning, not everyone understands what a cluster is. So how was your decision-making process to accept the challenge to go for a cluster manager?
I think it's a great question to start, Josep, because I think I was very happy or very lucky, to have the career I have that prepare me for this challenge of running a cluster. So I left the university. I'm a major in economics some time ago, 1994. And my first years of work, I worked for a Belgian company manufacturing exhaust systems for cars. So I got to learn a lot about the automotive sector, but also working for a multinational company. So I think it was a great start for my career. Then in the year 2000, I decided to quit and move into consultancy. And I worked 5 years for PricewaterhouseCoopers, focusing mainly in the automotive sector, but also I had the privilege to run projects for modern art museums, for the railway, Spanish railway, for very diverse companies who improve my background, but also working in a Big Four. I think it's great to think about strategy, problems, solutions. So it was a great step. and a great learning point for my career. But when I was
listening
working
to you, it made sound that you were fit for the job, right? You're coming for a big multinational, also consultancy, and later automotive. So it's kind of a, I mean, looking backgrounds, it looks like you were fit for the position. Do you feel this way?
Yes, because just before the cluster manager position, when I quit PwC, I was tired of working endless hours and living in Madrid and Valencia. I wanted to come back to Zaragoza. I was born in Zaragoza, so I had family roots, and I wanted to come back. I worked 2 years for an SME, for a small company owned by a family, in the packaging and in the automotive sector. So when the job position of Aragon Automotive Cluster was open, of course I applied, and I could sell the consulting company that was doing the hiring process, that I had experience working in a multinational environment with an SME in the automotive sector. And that's at the end what we do as cluster managers, try to understand the needs from SMEs, from multinational company, knowing about the sector. And although my background is economy, so I'm not an engineer, I still have done some projects with research centers. So I think that's a very good backbone for entering as a cluster manager. We know that we know that we have to be sometimes like this circus director and being able to run different shows at the same time. So I think that prepared me quite well for the job of my life, really, because it's been 14 years. It has passed like this, and I'm really enjoying every day. So really very, very happy about that. And what about you, Josep? Because you're coming from a total different background than me.
I come from a different background. Yeah, actually, I was listening to you, and I didn't know some of the things you just shared with us, and it's amazing how you've been in a big multinational, you've been in an SME, family SME, and also in consultancy. So somehow I feel that you really were just narrowing to become like a star player on the cluster, let's say galaxy, somehow. Now in my case it's quite different. I came from a very different background, so I didn't finish university. I quit university because I set up a small company, a startup, when I was turning 21. I just set up my first company, and from there on I was starting and closing projects. Some of them, I have to say, they are still running nowadays. Some are companies, some of them are foundations, and it just happened somehow. I'd never worked in a big consultancy. I only once worked in a small SME for 1.5 years, actually. And the rest of my career, I've been an entrepreneur. So it's a quite different background that we have, my friend. Quite different.
Yeah,
quite different.
But you work as an entrepreneur. So it's
Absolutely.
also one of the areas that we as cluster managers need to develop within our cluster. For instance, it's an area that I'm not very, I don't have that experience. So I think it's also great. And also you work for an SME. And also knowing you and all the people that are listening or are watching us, they see that you are very good at communication, and it's also
I had to definitely.
Yeah, but that's another cornerstone of us as cluster managers, and one of the main hints that I will tell new clusters managers. Communication is key. If it's something that you have not developed in your previous jobs, train on how to communicate to different people, to your different stakeholders. It's not the same when you're talking with members, with your administration, but having communication skills, I think, is the soft skill top number one for our job to be able to.
I was about to ask you about that. So, do you think that the main skill that, because sometimes I was just sharing with you before clicking recording to this podcast, I was telling David that one of the things that most people ask me when they just start or they are thinking to apply to a job for a cluster manager, or they just get hired as a cluster manager here in Catalonia. Sometimes we have I don't know, a beer or having a lunch, something like that, and we just share. They ask me, okay, Joseph, what do you think for me, for this person, as a new member of this community, what should be the main skills? So you would say communication is number one.
So if we talk about soft skills, I will say yes. Communication should be.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me. But for the people listening to us, imagine that maybe some of the audience right now listening, they are maybe they're, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 years like you in this position. But probably most of the people listening to this going to be people, they just arrived to the cluster community. So how would we explain to them that communication is that important in our roles?
Because we need to sell projects to our members. We need to sell projects to the European Union, to our country, to our region, because we have to facilitate networking, because we have to build not only commitment but trust from the members, mm-hmm. and for that. Communication is key. So that's the reason I think should be the first soft skill to be added. But mm-hmm. but also mm-hmm. I would like to give you an idea that came to my mind when I was working at PwC. Mm-hmm. I became a consultancy manager, and I saw that. This position in consultancy needed 3 things. If I have to split myself, I needed to be a sales guy. So because I needed to sell the project to the customer, I needed to run a team. I had to create a strong bond with my teams, and I think it's also very important. And at the same time, I needed to have some technical background to understand about the projects we were running. So mm-hmm. those 3 areas are important, I think, to become a successful cluster manager. Part of our job, Josep, is sell
Absolutely.
Sell the cluster,
Absolutely.
sell the projects, and so on. So we are sales guys. Part of our job is having our teams committed, having our teams happy, developing their careers. It's important because they are the ones really performing the job. So,
absolutely. Day to day, they run it.
Yeah, and last but not least, some sectorial or technical knowledge is needed. I mean, in my case, working almost 10, 12 years in the automotive sector helped me to understand or to have the same language the members of the cluster were speaking to me. And of course, mm-hmm. maybe not the most important, because you can gain this knowledge so with some time, with some experience. But at least I think some experience in the sector or in the technology, because of course clusters are evolving. So now they are not so cluster, so sector centric, and they are changing. They are more transversal. Maybe some of them are more technological centric. So at least some knowledge, not in detail, and that will be my case. I mean, I'm not an engineer, mm-hmm. but I understand a little bit of technical issues. So splitting in those 3 areas, I think are important: sales, leading teams, and some technical background. Or some experience in this sector, plus this soft skill of communication.
of knowledge of the, yeah, absolutely. I have to say that I remember when I mean, my first startup was a complete disaster. I want to say complete disaster. I lost all my money and the money of the two of my investors as well. Hopefully it wasn't that big amount, but it was all they had. And I remember for many days crying, and yeah, I was going to bed every night like a baby, crying, something like that. And I remember at the time I met one of my mentors. Actually, he's my mentor still nowadays after more than 20 years. And the main thing he encouraged me was to become a salesman, as the same as you mentioned right now. For me, it was quite frustrating because it was, no, I want to be a businessman and I don't want to be a salesman. But he was so insistent on that point, and I mean, at that stage of my life, I had nothing else to do but from recovering. So I decided to go to sales, and I start trying to go to any sales speech, sales course, sales anything that I could get in my hands, because I mean I had nothing else to do actually out of that. So I start getting sales, and I have to agree with you 100% that sales probably it's been one of the things that helped me go through my career in different stages. And I going to the particular point of the cluster manager, I 100% agree with you mentioned David, because when you are selling like we do, you have to speak different languages. And I'm not talking Spanish, English, whatever. I'm talking about you have to talk the language of the administration, which is, I mean, you know it better than me. Administration talks, I mean, I don't know if the audience will agree with us, but the administration talks a very different language that we do. We have to talk the language of our associates, which, okay, you could say, oh, it's automotive industry language. No, inside the automotive industry, there's a different perspective, different realities, as it happens in any other field, probably. Especially for those clusters, they are multi-sectorial, right? And at the same time, as you already mentioned, you have to talk the language of your employees, because you have some of them, they are seniors, some of them, they are really young, and they all put on the table different skills, different abilities, different energy. So you end up talking a lot of languages, because you have to talk the language, but you need to understand the language as well, right? So you get the priorities right. For me, I remember the biggest challenge selling was going through the negative feedback, right? Getting rejected. For me, is one of the key things. And I don't know if you agree, when you are cluster manager, you get rejected a lot. You get rejected for the administration, you get rejected for new members for your cluster, you get rejected sometimes for the cluster itself, you get rejected your ideas, maybe sometimes in the board of directors, you get rejected in your own team, maybe they don't agree with you, with the proposal you had in mind, you have to negotiate that as well. So it's a big challenge, but and that's the question I'm throwing to you right now, because sales, it's not, and this particular is not only to try to put your goal in the other person, trying to put your mind in the other person, but also trying to understand what's the reality of the other side, and trying to like fit or range a middle term, right? You sell to your team, but you need to listen to your team at the same time. So I would say, and you let me know if you agree with that, if you sell 100% of what you're selling, of your thoughts, you're probably just missing a big opportunity there, because you are not flowing, or you are not taking the advisement of your team, of the administration, of your cluster members, right? And so you have to fit some kind of like a middle ground to make it work, let's say, at the optimal level.
I think I will open two different lines on this issue, Josep. One, and that's my personal experience, working in the consultancy business helped me. You know that consultancy projects, 90% of the project is done by the customer. They have the knowledge. So consultancy helped me to develop my ears to listen to what they really want, because sometimes we are thinking about what we are going to sell, and we don't listen to the other part.
Absolutely.
So it's something that cluster managers need to be very conscious about it. Listen first, act later, and listen and try to understand what are their needs of all your members. Don't try to sell them training, a research project, and maybe you need a second meeting for that sale. So listening is key, and understanding what they want. And the second thing that I would like to highlight here is you've been sales guy for different companies, okay? I've been selling consultancy projects and so on. We have an advantage as a clusters managers. We do really believe in what we do. What we sell, we know is going to help them improve our members, because of course all clusters want to improve the competitiveness of their sector, of the technology, and so on. In the past, when you were selling other products, or when I was selling consultancy, we said I'm selling a smoke. I mean, this company does not need this project, but you push. But here, it's something that I really like from my job, and I think it's something that we are transmitting as a cluster managers. When we go to see a company for the first time, talking about the cluster, our passion, our belief that a cluster is going to help them in different needs, and selling something, really believing in it, makes our life much easier. And also, when we got rejected, and it happens a lot, it's okay. I mean, it's something that
it doesn't hurt you that much.
It doesn't
right?
hurt us that much, and then you know that it will come back. I mean, there are current CAAR members that first time I went to visit them was 10 years ago, and it took them 10 years to become a member. Companies, research centers, universities have different life cycles, and you don't know when the opportunity is going to arise. So let them have these life cycles, and maybe they are not very worried because they are launching a new product, they are merging with another company. The time will come, and at the end they will come back, they will knock on your door, and you will be like, yes, I was waiting for you, don't worry. When the time arrives,
welcome home.
It's like
absolutely
that.
Agree.
It's like that.
100% agree with you, David. I think to sell something, it doesn't matter if it's a product or a service, but do you truly believe in it? It's a very powerful, because it's like when you are like operating on a cell phone, something like that you need to recharge time to time, or when you are working from a cell phone that it's permanently connected to the electricity, right? You don't need to recharge, because you are 100% of the time just connected to the main source, right? So it's yeah, absolutely. Actually, I'm happy enough, and I'm lucky enough to say that I've been selling all my whole life in the different companies I created, and I always sell things that are services or products that I believe in it. And I think that's something that's really powerful. Absolutely. And I would encourage that anyone, cluster or outside the cluster, do not try to sell something you don't believe in, because it's gonna drain all your energy. Absolutely.
Sometimes, and this is also a thing that I would like to share with future cluster managers, or with current cluster managers. It's difficult to find KPIs that can measure the impact of our job. And that so sometimes we are selling from the heart. Okay, yes, of course we got some projects where we can prove that they have an economical impact, an innovation impact, and so on. But how do you?
It's easier to measure it, right?
Yeah, but how do you measure networking in euros? It's impossible. But
You cannot.
But how many
You
examples could we, Josep, give to the audience about doing the matching with two companies, getting to know each other, and then just by sharing information, those two companies have improved their performance, their sales. Maybe they have started a business relationship 1 year later, and so it's difficult to have all.
I would say not only difficult but impossible as well. And I would say yesterday I was having a dinner with some of my associates, and we were just talking about that. The main reason of the dinner was that a new member was just hired in one of these companies, members of my cluster, and he asked me, what do you spend your time with? And I was trying to think, how much of my time do I spend in, as you mentioned a bit, in some kind of work that can be shown, right, can be measured, and how much of my time I spend in things that they cannot be put on paper, right? They cannot be put, as you mentioned, in a KPI, like, okay, improvement on profits or benefits or relationships, something like that. And that's very tough, man, because I realized that in our case, I don't know if you agree with that, but I would say half of my time, 50% of my time, I probably spend it in relationships.
Yeah.
Talk with administration, talk with managers, talk with owners, company owners, talk with investors, talk with many people, and all these relationships, they are like they are there for when you need it, but it's very difficult to put that on writing and try to explain to your colleagues or your associates, why do you expend that much time there? But the main thing is that when they need something, they take the phone, call you and say, hey David or Joseph, whatever, and I need this. Do you know someone, right? And then you say, hey, hold on, I can put you in contact with these people, or with this company, with this part of the administration to solve that very particular situation or problem. But that's something that you have to cultivate, because it doesn't happen overnight, right?
No, and they say that there are tangible benefits for being part of a cluster and intangible benefits.
Absolutely.
And those are the intangibles. When we go sometimes to visit some of our members, they are maybe during 1 hour, they are crying about the energy crisis, the raw material crisis, the difficulties to find workers, inflation, you name it. But they are putting on our backs that weight, and that's helping them. Okay, so,
absolutely.
And maybe next week. Okay, I have a problem here. Maybe the cluster can help me. You know what? One of the things I always say to every new member that starts at CAAR is write down my cell phone and save it under favorites, and call me every time you have a problem.
I didn't know that, but I do the same. Absolutely.
Maybe we won't find the answer, but we have such a strong network that maybe somebody will find an answer for them. And that's how you start to build trust, and how you start to build a relationship with them. And that's why some companies, and that's one of our sales pitch to new members. they are tired of other economical organizations or chambers of commerce, or you can name them. We are closer to them, and that's something that clusters managers cannot lose in their day to day. And COVID was good for things like that, being able to have this conversation with you, being in Barcelona, myself being in Zaragoza, but we missed the face-to-face meetings, and our members want us to be with them, to shake hands, to drink a coffee, and we need to be there with them, and that's something that I will tell new clusters managers. Book one morning per week to visit 2-3 companies. Of course, there are some cluster managers of 300, 400 members that this is very, very difficult. But being able to be at least once per year in a face-to-face meeting with your member is very, very important to build that relationship.
Yeah, building relationships, I think, is one of the keys. Absolutely. And I have to say that maybe you're not going to trust that, but I'm consider myself as a shy guy, to be honest. And because at the very beginning of my career, it was very difficult to me to introduce to new people. It was, I mean, it took me like forever to take the energy to introduce myself and something like that. So it's something I really had to pay a lot of attention and find myself different strategies to introduce myself. And time to time, I still struggle with that. And to be honest, but I would say that as you mentioned, for the just arrived, for the new cluster managers, spend time with your cluster members. In my case, I normally spend the Fridays. Friday is my day with Marta, which is one of the key members of my team. We try to every week, every Friday, try to book maybe one, sometimes 2 visits to cluster members, because this is so important. Because if you just talk to them but in a particular matter, as a video call, as we are doing it right now, it's okay. If they call you or send you a WhatsApp, it's okay. But if you can spend maybe an hour during, I don't know, during lunch or a coffee or a beer or whatever, you create some kind of, let's say, emptiness, right, between conversations that just allows to grow new things, you know.
Yeah, they tell you things that they won't tell you by phone or by Zoom or by WhatsApp.
They will not call you for that, but because you are there, they can share with you this other particular. So yeah, 100% agree. Spend time with your cluster members. I remember one of the first courses I did regarding sales, and I can remember like it was yesterday. The guy speaking in front of us, he told us sales are very easy. At the moment for me, sales was like an impossible thing, right? And he told us it's very easy. You ask what they need, you get what they need, you give them what they need. That's the 3 steps. That's that easy. So first step, because for me at the very beginning was, okay, I have to get something to sell. No, that's not the first step. The first step is not to get something. The first step is to ask them what they need, because sometimes you can, and that's something that I hear all the time in the clusters. The main, let's say, problem, the main mistake that clusters do is to try to figure it out what the cluster members need, and you have to ask them. Yeah. You cannot imagine it. You cannot try to create it in your mind. You cannot try to guess it. You have to ask.
Yeah, I have one good story about this. When I joined CAAR in July 15, 2008.
You remember the date?
Of course.
I don't remind it. You are more romantic than I am.
I received a laptop a cell phone, and a strategic plan that was done by a consultancy company. Start the cluster. Okay, so coming from consultancy, I read the strategic plan, and I throw it in the trash. Okay, what they said, it was impossible. I mean, it was a typical strategic plan from up the hill. Huh? And you needed starting an organization from the bottom. So it was easy. There were only 20 members at that time. No? We are currently 120. So my first 3 weeks was visiting the 20 cluster members and asking, what do you need? What has not worked in the past with other associations? What do you see the future? How could we help you?
So ask them, right?
Yeah. So that
just ask the right questions.
That gave me an important cornerstone. Then I want to have meetings like this one we are having right now with more experienced cluster managers. Actually, I met all the automotive cluster managers of Spain, and I asked them how they were doing their job, and that's something that new cluster managers shouldn't be afraid to ask older clusters managers like you and me, because we have done it in the past, and because we really believe in this collaboration. Okay,
absolutely.
So from both feedbacks, knowing what other clusters older than us were doing with more experience, and what our members needed, that's when I defined my own, I wouldn't say strategic plan, but action plan, at least for the first couple of years. And later, and that's also very important for clusters managers, old and new, and of course they will agree, strategy is key. We are now under, I think, our third strategic plan, and this year we have to prepare the fourth strategic plan. Those strategic plans coming from feedback from all your members or your stakeholders, knowing what's going on outside, inside, they clearly prepare you and mark you the way to follow things and to do the projects within your organization. A clear strategy is key for the success of the clusters, and that's one of the areas that ESCA, when they do the labeling, the bronze, the silver, and the gold label, spends more time, no? Getting to know about how you have created that strategy and how do you implement that strategy. And we have an advantage of being able to evolve fast from one background to the other. I think we can share with our friends. For me, our success story of the Spanish automotive clusters during COVID. I think it was after the second week of lockdown. We started to meet every Friday at 8:30. You guys are killing me because I don't want to wake up that early, but it's in the benefit of all of us. But what started?
Thank you for that.
what really started as what were we going to do? What information do you have? Almost 3 years later, it's something that it's fixed in our agendas, and every Friday
Absolutely.
at 8:30. You are not going to find the automotive clusters manager of Spain, because we are in our meeting, and we call it as a joke our anonymous alcoholic meeting, because we of course talk about our.
We share everything.
We share everything, right? But we have gained so much knowledge by sharing what we were doing in our regions, and we are not so strong. I mean, we have really grown as cluster managers and as organizations, thanks to this sharing, and the projects we are running now together, if we thought 3 years ago that we were going to do the projects we are running, we would not have believed that we will be in this grade of collaboration between our entities, and we know, and of course, I mean we have to be honest about this. We are coming from different regions, and
Absolutely.
we are competing in two things. We want our companies from our region to sell to the OEMs of the other regions, and we want to bring new investments to our region from different OEMs and Tier 1. But knowing those are the two areas that have a red line, the rest is we are better the more we collaborate together.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's something, one of the messages I would like to stress out to all the people that will be watching this podcast. Collaborate with your cluster manager, with your regional cluster manager, with your national, with your sectorial, and then start to grow the network European-wise. I mean, we didn't have any experience working with European clusters, and we started, let's say, about 2016, 17, and last year we were running 4 European projects. It's something that you will be building little by little. Don't try to rush. Get to know your local regional clusters, then go national, then go European. But
European.
Collaborate, share, and be the first to share your knowledge and your problems, because you will see somebody has passed through that time and will be able to tell you how to solve that problems. Be generous.
Absolutely agree with that, and I think it's not only to collaborate but create community, right? Yes, as you mentioned, when you create community, it's a great support for both things to share all the, let's say, all the achievements and everything, because you can share it. You can just share with them, share your expertise, share your your ambitions. Maybe some of them can join you on those vision you have forward towards some new goal, something like that. But also to share as you mentioned, the problems you have, the struggles you are having, because maybe some of them already passed through the same struggles as you, and they can maybe give you some advice, give you some ideas how they manage that. And I think that's something very, very interesting. I can tell, I'm not going to go for the details, but I went a couple of times through a very tough times on my professional career along these few years as a cluster manager, and sharing it with you guys. It's been, it's really been very supportive for me. And I have to say, it's one of the main pillars to go through the experience. Absolutely.
Yeah, because we understand each other. I mean, it's difficult to tell your family. When I quit my job and I told my wife, I'm going to be cluster manager of the Aragon Automotive Cluster.
She said, cluster what?
She was 7 months pregnant of our first boy. And you are crazy. What is a cluster? What are you going to do? How do we explain our family?
Is that a real career?
That what we do. And maybe our friends from Northern Europe had an advantage against us, but for us it was difficult. We still have to sell what a cluster is.
Yeah.
So it's not that you can find skilled people that know about clustering, and so it's great to be able to share our experience, and because we are not. It's difficult to find people that know what we do or understand what we do.
Absolutely,
okay?
absolutely.
So that's
especially
something.
because as a cluster, probably, most of the cluster, I'm not going to say all of them, but you have very limited resources on the economic point of view, or human resources as well, because we are quite small teams. I think you are 11 people in your cluster.
Mm-hmm.
We are 7 right now, with also with having 2, 3, 4 people as practitioners, as internship people, always running through the cluster, which is very helpful for us and for them. but you have really limited resources and you have to do a lot of things. So I think that's one of the main challenges for the cluster. It depends on where you're coming from, right? Because what I realized is that most of when I talk to other cluster managers, the main excuse, let's say, the main concern they have is they don't have enough resources to do all they want to do. But I don't know how do you manage that. But for me, I have to be honest. For me to have limited resources, it's kind of my reality for my whole life. You know, I've been always like a startup guy, so I always have limited resources, very limited. So I always had to really, you know, push it and string it to the limit to try to take advantage of all I have, any ability, any talent, any from any member of my team. So I would say to all the cluster managers, they are just starting, or they want just to reconsider how to manage it. Don't rely on the resources, because resources is something that they show up. I mean, if you have good ideas, if you have like a trusted team with experience, with like a track record of being able to create projects and achieve goals, resources, there are something they come to you. I mean, that's one of the things I learned as an entrepreneur, that if your ideas are good, if you can show them, demonstrate, you have a track record of being able to concrete those ideas, because everyone has ideas. You have ideas, I have ideas, everyone has ideas. But for me, the main key is not to have it, but to be able to materialize them, right? If you can show people that, you mean companies are going to give you money, administration, they are going to give you money. Everyone's going to be, you know, like, take my money to do that, because that's the key. A lot of people talk, a lot of people have ideas, but very few people are able to like concrete that ideas and make them run, right?
Mm-hmm. And on this matter, also tell them to all the people that are listening, don't get stressed by the fact that you have so many ideas and you have so little resources. And it's like, okay, one by one,
prioritize.
Focus on the ones at the beginning that they have the biggest return. And then you will have more resources for the future. But yes, I mean, and you are a great example. You and your cluster, Josep, how many projects you are running at the same time? Because I mean, if you have 100 companies, they may have 200, 300 different ideas. And one thing that I think that differentiates clusters is that we work very hard to get from the idea to the realization of that idea.
Absolutely, that's one of the keys. Yeah.
So when we were talking about soft skills and about communication, let's tell everybody that project management is another area where all cluster managers and all the cluster managers and the teams need to excel.
Absolutely, that's going to be one of your strengths. Absolutely,
being able to run projects and to run successful projects. It's also something that I think I have changed our organization. I'm talking about CAAR. When in the past we had like we were working by areas, by innovation area and business development and training areas, and now we have seen that. What clusters do is we start collaborative projects between our members, and all our work is around projects. So we have now senior project managers, project managers, and junior project managers, and they work with each other. And sometimes you are leading a project, and sometimes you are just part of the team. And I think also that's a difference from other organizations that help us to be ready to cope with the challenges of coming from the idea to and being able to work that idea and have an end result on that project.
That's one of the main keys to I think to work on the day to day. And on this particular, I would say that, and we mentioned that before, but I would like to just emphasize a little bit more, because to be able to get projects from your cluster members is one of the keys, because otherwise you're going to be always guessing what your cluster members needs, right? So you have to give them the some different ways to try to approach you and try to tell you and ask you what they need, right? um you mentioned a very great way to that is just get my number, get it in your speed dial list, and call me anytime you have a struggle. Maybe I don't have the solution at the right time, right there, but I can work out something to come back to you maybe in a week or maybe in a couple of weeks. Because at the end of the day, most of our companies have the same problems with human resources, same legal problems, same supply problems, transport problems. So there's a lot of areas where they share problems, despite they are different companies, and even the companies they are competing outside for the same kind of projects outside. Maybe in the inside they have very similar products or projects. Sorry, they can work together. So
Yeah,
the key for me.
yeah, sorry.
And I just want to emphasize that the key for me is do not ask for projects, but ask for problems, right? And ask them, what problem do you have? And from there, try to. I mean, in our case, we have like a collaborative platform and on the website where they can just throw all the problems there, and so other people can just add up to that problems, right? To say, oh, I have the same problem, but with this particular situation. So you can create, or you can help them to create the projects they need to develop. And right now we receive around between 60 and 70 challenges per year, right?
Wow.
And we end up working on between 40 and 50 of them every year, which is a huge number of projects that, as you said, we do not solve them. We find other people to do that. But when we do, we know 100% sure that what we are working on, there's people interested because they ask us for that, right?
Mm-hmm. When I realized that a cluster or some kind of organization was needed was 1999. I was the logistics manager for this Belgian company. I had to ship exhaust systems to Germany, and the borders were closed because France were on strike. So I had to ship exhaust by airplane. And I was thinking, I'm sure that I'm not the only one having this problem. I'm sure that there will be many suppliers in our region who also supplied to Germany, to the Eisenach plant, that will have the same problem. But we were not speaking with each other. And maybe some of them are competitors. But here we are just trying to save the business. And it's also very important that clusters managers sell this idea that competitors can work together in the cluster, and sometimes you don't compete with your neighbor, but maybe if this is a multinational company with other European countries who want to get this new investments or new products. So at the end, I had to send those parts by plane, and it cost me a fortune. And I'm sure the plane was half empty, and didn't cost my job, fortunately. But I knew that we had to build something. And right now, some of the projects that clusters start are just by sharing knowledge, by sharing how we do things, and you and I, together with the rest of the automotive Spanish clusters, have been able to do a project about sharing Industry 4.0 best practices.
Absolutely. Amazing project.
Very easy.
1,000 attendees was amazing. Amazing experience.
And very, very easy. We have learned from each other, and new business have new business opportunities have been created, and it was that simple. Every one of us, we are 8 automotive clusters in Spain. We work together, pick up 2 different best practice industry 4.0. So that was 16. We did a webinar every 3 weeks, and 1,500 people passed through those sessions.
Amazing.
Sharing. It's key for our success.
It's one of the keys. But that's something that, I mean, I don't know if you agree with me, but that's something shocking for the people when they heard that for the very first time. It doesn't matter if it's a new cluster manager. I remember many times looking at the face of the person who just arrived to the cluster manager job, and when I was talking about how do we share, this person's, I mean, boy, girl, man, woman, doesn't matter, look at me like, are open to do that? Are you sure? I mean, it's not that I am sure. I mean, it's my reality. It's my day-to-day reality. And also with the new, I mean, it doesn't. I don't know if it happens to you as well, but new companies where they signed up for the class and you try to explain them how do we work, is like, whoa, hold on. So I'm gonna be sitting on the same table of my of the companies I'm competing with outside. Are you sure? It's absolutely 100%. That's how we work. And is that possible? A class is a place where that can happen. Where else that could be happening? I mean, you can have the chance to sit maybe in an airplane next to another CEO from another company, and you can share with him or her. But the reality is, for us as a cluster members, there's something that we really need to, I think, interiorize, because this, I want to say, it's a main advantage we have, the main key differential thing that we have with any other organization, that in our area, in our house, in our office, you can share with people that in any other context, you could be sharing your problems. I think that's something very amazing.
Yeah. How many stories we could tell about companies that maybe have a breakdown of a stamping machine or injection machine, and thanks to the cluster have called the competitor and please, could you do me a favor? Could you stamp for me, inject for me? And
absolutely.
And we say in Spanish, hoy por ti, mañana por mí, no?
Exactly.
Me, tomorrow it will be you. But we broke that barrier. 15 years ago, that would have been impossible in my region. But now they know that the power of collaboration, and I think it's very important to stress it out to future, to current, to new clusters managers, being one of the main results that we can have being part of a cluster.
Absolutely. Also, I think probably one of the main challenges we have, and talking about selling and working and everything, is to try to organize the very different needs sometimes our cluster members has, right? Because even in our case, we are a sectorial cluster, right? But out there's a lot of clusters. They are multi-sectorial. So in this particular, we have our own challenges in this particular field. But you need to organize them, right? Somehow. So you need to create like commissions or areas, strategic areas, something like that. But somehow you need to prioritize, because you mentioned before that there's a lot to do, and every company has their own needs. So you try to align them, some of them, or narrow it somehow, and you need to support them in very particular projects or very huge projects. I mean, in our case, we are around almost 200 members, and there are some projects where maybe we are like 20 or 25 even. I remember some projects we even been more than 40 companies working together. I remember exoskeletons, big project we had in the past. Actually, right now, after 4 years, we keep doing projects around that particular matter. Or I don't know, there's many other projects like Google Glasses or virtual reality, something like that. They're very popular. But at the same time, even huge organizations like ours, we have to do projects for like 4 companies, 5 companies, 6 companies who has very concrete needs, very concrete situations that they need support with that. And we need to balance one with the other, right?
Yeah, and working groups it's the way to do it. It's I always say that's the heart of the cluster. Okay, the brain will be the strategy plan, and the heart is the working groups who give you ideas for projects. And sometimes when you grow, working groups are too big, so there's need to split. You must think that sometimes it's impossible to work with 60 companies at the same time. Like we had a working group of SMEs, 60 members, unmanageable. But we say, okay, let's split by technology, the SME. So we have plastic, we have metal, we have auxiliary service, industry 4.0. So now we have 5 different working groups of SMEs from divided by technology. And the needs are different from one company that is working metal, from another that it's working with plastic. So sometimes,
which
of course,
number, David? Which number do you think is the maximum manageable for a group?
I will say to build
because
trust.
50 or 60, it's too much. Even 40, it's too much.
Yeah, I think 15 to 20 could be a good number.
100% agree.
Yeah. And
actually,
to build that trust. Yeah.
What we did is I'm not going to say we stopped, because we didn't. We did not stop, but we really reduced the number of the meetings that our strategic areas has, because we only have 7 strategic areas. And in every area, not in everyone, but almost in everyone, there's more than 100 companies signed in, so which is impossible to manage. So we follow a different strategy that instead of splitting these areas in the smaller areas, what we do is we work only based on projects. That's how we do it. I mean, I really like your approach as well. And in our case, we took a different one, not that different reality, but we decide to work in a concrete project. So it means that every working group has an end date, right? Like a caducity date. So we know that we have a goal, and as soon as we reach this goal, in a few weeks, in a few months, in a few years, we close the group. And after that, we just decide to go for another group. Maybe it's a second version, a second stage of the same group. But we don't want groups bigger than 20 people, because it's just impossible to manage. And there's all the time there's people who is missing, people who get bored, people who concerns or claims that the main goal is lost, so they don't want to come back there. So I think you need to go for like a dynamic version of these groups, just to make sure that the goals of the group are there. And as soon as you reach the goal, you need to just close the group and start a new one.
Yeah, and there is no right way to do it. I mean, the good thing of sharing our experience is that we have just seen 2 different approaches, yours and ours. And that's something that cluster managers need to realize, that you will have to define your approach according to your members, that are going to be different to my members or to Josep members. And no, there is no golden rule, but see all the possibilities. It's like when we talk about services, because I think we are just missing two areas that I think cluster managers will be interested: services and financing. And with that, I think we could finish this talk. But services, you and I know that we have a very different approach.
Absolutely.
And there are so many European projects where all the clusters work into delivering new services to cluster members. And come on, guys! I mean, it's A, B, or C. I mean, we are helping them to sell more, business development. We are going to help them in innovation, both process and product, or we are going to help them talent-wise. I mean, training or finding new jobs and so on. And then you can have different varieties. Of course, when you are helping an entrepreneur, it's part innovation, something new, part business development. But those are the services that we can sell to our members. But be very strong on those 3 areas, and sell your expertise, your sectoral expertise, sell your project management skills, and sell your experience with getting funds from national, from regional, and from European calls. Because
Absolutely,
we
absolutely.
do it for ourselves, we can do it for our members. But there is no the perfect service or the new service that we clusters can launch. I think we have to be close to what our members want. And now I can give you an example. In my previous strategic plan, the environmental and sustainability issues were maybe 1%. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Right now in the automotive industry, it's all about regulation. It's about electric cars. It's about
if you're not green, you have a problem.
Okay, so we have to learn, we have to adapt, and maybe we will launch new services in this area. Let's talk about the carbon footprint. Maybe we can help our members. But at the end, if we calculate the carbon footprint for our members, it will be because some customers of our members is requesting that. So we will help him again to that they sell more, business development or innovation and so on. But be aware of these new trends. I think that we don't have to break our heads against the wall about new services. It's more simple. It's more simple than that.
I think that's one of the big problems that some clusters do. I mean, I include myself. Sometimes we try to diversify too much, and we lose the specialization, right? So we need to be, like the best at something. Maybe 1, 2, maximum 3 areas. We have to be. I mean, as you mentioned, maybe market knowledge, maybe trustworthy. We are very trustworthy organizations because we are private organizations. Most of us. I know a few of them are public, but but at the same time, we are non-profit organizations. So trustworthy is one of the main aspects that we put in our core values, right? And at the same time, we need to diversify a little bit, but not too much. I would say have like 1, 2 things that you are the best. No one is better than you at something, and then has another 3, 4 services additional that maybe you are not the best, but they are very related with your main or your core business activities. That it's very easy for you to provide, at the same time for your companies to decide to go with you. But I think a cluster has to be careful to not diversify too much, right?
Yeah. I totally agree. And maybe you are the best in networking, and you make the best parties and the best
absolutely
and that's a value that it's going to be recognized. So okay, you are the best on networking. In other areas it will come to you. So but yes, that specialization is great.
I bet it's not a cluster, but it's an association that works very similar way than a cluster, but it's not a cluster itself. But these people, they have like 200-300 members, and the main core activity they do is dinners. It's amazing. Yeah. They have like dinners among 100 people, dinners among 20 people, dinners among 2 people. But that's the main activity they do. When you sign up to be part of this community, it's because you're going to have dinners with very interesting people for you. But the main activity they do is eat. Eat with administration, with industry, with services, with companies, so it's like a professional network, but everything is happening through this particular situation on the table, eating something, right? Some of us, not in our case, but some of you guys specialize on consultancy, some specialize on training, very important, very core activity. But in our case, for instance, we do not do any consultancy, neither training. We are specialized on project management. And as I mentioned before, we run more than 40 projects per year, which is for us like our main activity too. So I think that every cluster has to find what's the main activity they're going to do. And I want to go back to something we mentioned before. You do not have to decide or think about what's going to be your key area. you need to listen to your associates, and they're going to tell you what do you need to be, which one has to be your main activity, because it could be export, it could be, as you say, maybe networking, it could be, but it depends on the market you are, in the sector you are. It depends on the region you are.
Yeah.
What's the main need of the region at that time, and that has to be your main specialization, right?
Yeah, I mean, you said that there is a big difference between push projects and pull projects. Push projects is the ideas that you have as a cluster manager. And as I worked 5 years as purchasing manager, I come to the cluster and I said, I'm going to do global purchasing with my members. and I sold them the idea, and we tried to work on that, and I failed because they didn't want that.
But project. You wanted.
I wanted. And I know some clusters have very strong purchasing services for the members. But the key to this success is because it's a pool project. It's been the members who have requested the cluster to do that project. So guys, listen, don't push projects. When I have pushed projects, I have failed always. So I know that the projects need to come from the member, and that specialization also that Josep was talking about, it's key for one of the big mantras of cluster management. At least it has helped me in the last 10 years. I remember I went to the Nordic, German, and Polish clusters meeting. I think it was 2012 in Denmark, in Copenhagen, and I saw one of the presentation was telling us about financing, about what would be a good balance for clusters, and don't remember his name, but he said 1/3 of your funds coming from membership fees, 1/3 coming from public funding, 1/3 coming from services.
Okay.
And I have tried to follow that path.
Is that your reality?
It's not. Right now, I think it's 25% membership fees, 20% public funding, and 55 services. But it's a goal, and it's a goal that for once you say, okay, at least I have to be able to have enough membership fees to finance my fixed costs, my team, and so on. So that helped me to raise my membership fees from 1,000 euros that it was at the beginning to 2,500 euros. Now it's more, but it depends on the category. Then, of course, think about public funding, European calls, national calls, regional calls, but competitive public funding. And you and I know that 1 year you can have a lot of success, and another you can have only failure.
Absolutely.
So always
you have to be very careful with that.
Yeah. So that will be complemented by the service, because when you have a bad year and you don't get European funding or national funding for different projects, you will need to survive with your membership fees and with the service that you provide. So the good thing of the 1/3 membership fees, 1/3 of public funding, 1/3 of services, the good thing is that makes you work in the three areas. And you will not be able to be exactly 33%, but at least you understand or you have a balanced funding.
Yeah, a global idea of that. Yeah, I think that's a very particular, very important aspect to review. In our case, because that's where you get your income, then that's where you get your costs, right? And in our case, we don't provide any kind of services to, not charging. Of course, we provide a lot of services to my associates, but our associates, they not pay us for any other extra activities so far. We've been looking to that, but not right now. Out of applying to some kind of maybe funding, something like that. But we get, I would say, it's main, some part of our income comes from the member fees, and the other part comes from from European calls or local or autonomic or national calls that we have some kind of funding, always through projects, always apply through projects. We don't apply for any other thing.
Very important.
Exactly. But in the cost part, I think the costs are very important. You mentioned that. I think you have to really, as a cluster manager, we really try to cut the costs. I mean, I'm not going to say to the limit, but you really need to be very careful for the reason you mentioned, because any struggle on the sector, you're going to feel it. You're going to be one of the first to feel it, right? Maybe you can get, I don't know, maybe 10, 20, even 30% of your cluster members say, okay, this year I'm not going to be able to be in your cluster, but I'm looking forward to come in a couple of years. But I mean, if most people do that, there's not going to be a cluster after 2 years, right? So you have to be very careful with that.
That's true. That's true. By the way, Josep, have you seen the time? Because I think our friends will be a little bit tired of seeing you and I talking for such a long time. And actually, my headphones, it only works now one, so I'm running out of battery of my headphones. So I think we should wrap up.
To me that it's been an hour and a quarter. Okay, it's okay. I think I think it's enough for the first meeting, right?
Yeah, I think we cover many topics.
Okay, let me finish with that. David. Sentence. To be a good cluster manager, you need to
listen to your members.
Your members, 100% agree with that. David, it's been a pleasure talking to you, my friend. Thank you very much for taking this challenge that we put on the table. I really thank you. It's a new experience. Let's see if it's helpful for people. If it's helpful, sorry, we're gonna do more of that. If it's not, we'll try new things. But anyways, thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much. All contact details from David, from myself, are going to be below this video, so you can get in touch with us. Guys, ask any questions you have for collaboration or for particular. You can just hang out somewhere in Europe, wherever we can find. David, thank you very much. See you next Friday in our meetings.
Thank you very much, Josep, for having me here. And who knows, maybe this is the start of a successful cluster podcast.
Let's see. If it's helpful, it will be. So thank you very much, everyone. If you hold on until the very end of the video, thank you very much for being with us, guys. See you in the next video. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.